In Ohio, the archives are filled with stories that no one has been able to explain. Creatures that were not supposed to exist, cursed letters that destroyed lives, sinister voices recorded in abandoned tunnels, cruel deaths that remain unsolved, all real, all documented, and all one still unanswered. But today I bring everything I could gather. Evidence that is real. Are you ready? Then put on your headphones, turn off the lights, and hide well under the blanket. Because now the mystery begins. Let's go. The Minerva Monster. In 1978, the small town of Minerva, Ohio, found itself at the center of a mystery that remains unexplained. The Caton family reported seeing an unusual creature on their property located near a wooded area. The creature, described as bipedal, hairy, and about 6.5 feet tall, was seen on more than one occasion. It was not a known animal. Its movements were silent, and its smell was unbearable, similar to ammonia. The main incident occurred when the family, accompanied by friends, saw the creature watching the house near the abandoned quarry next to the residence. Upon investigation, they noticed a patch of flattened grass, as if something large had laid there. Scratch marks on trees, and a tuft of thick hair caught in a thorny bush. The police were called. The officers, although skeptical, recorded the physical evidence. The case gained attention after journalist Barb Galloway from the Akron Beacon Journal published a series of articles about the sightings. She interviewed the residents, including Evelyn and Herbert Caton, who maintained the same account over the years. A newspaper artist, Dennis H., created sketches of the creature based on the descriptions provided. Other residents also reported similar encounters. One woman claimed to have seen the creature crossing the road at night. A group of teenagers reported strange screams coming from the woods even after the case faded from the media. The sightings did not stop completely. Cryptozoology researchers visited Minerva and considered the case one of the most consistent in Ohio. What sets the Minerva Monster apart from other similar reports is the combination of multiple reliable witnesses, physical evidence, and journalistic coverage. There were no signs of fraud, mass hysteria, or financial motives. To this day, no one has been able to explain exactly what was seen in Minerva. No similar creature has been captured or identified. The evidence, although inconclusive, is more solid than in most cases involving unknown beings. The described smell, the scratches on wood, the flattened grass, and the hair that was found were documented by the police, but the tests conducted at the time reached no definitive result. The case remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of the United States. The forest surrounding the old quarry remains quiet, but those who live there still remember, and some still hear from time to time, heavy footsteps among the trees, even when no one is around. The Circleville Letters. The Invisible Stalker. Circleville, Ohio. A small town with 13,000 residents. People who know each other by name. In 1976, something that seemed harmless began to spread fear. Anonymous letters, handwritten, began arriving at residents' homes. The messages accused ordinary people of adultery, corruption, and undisclosed crimes. No signature, only clear threats. If you don't stop, I will tell everything. Mary Gillespie was one of the first to receive them. She was accused of having an affair with the school principal. Mary denied it. The letters continued. They also started arriving for her husband, Ron Gillespie. The tone was direct. They told him to control his wife. A year later, Ron received a phone call and left the house armed. Hours later, he was found dead in a car accident. His gun had been fired once. No explanation. The letters continued. The town fell into panic. No one knew who was behind them, but it seemed like someone who watched everything closely. They knew schedules, routines, intimate details. The police investigated without success. Residents began to suspect one another. Some families moved away. In 1983, traps began to appear. One of them nearly killed Mary. A device was found on her school bus, a kind of trap with a hidden gun. The investigation led police to Paul Forshode, Mary's brother-in-law. He had recently separated from her sister. He had motives. According to detectives, the handwriting was similar. The evidence was weak, but enough to bring him to trial. Fresh Hour was convicted despite denying involvement. But even with him in prison, the letters did not stop. They continued arriving. Some even came to fresh hour himself inside prison. Doubt grew. If he was imprisoned, how did the letters continue? Authorities ignored it. The conviction stood. Local newspapers and television programs began covering the case. The show Unsolved Mysteries aired a special. Reporters interviewed residents. Many said the letters were just part of something bigger. Someone in town wanted to manipulate, spread fear, divide. The author seemed to know the victims personally. The accusations, though never proven, always struck sensitive points. Fresh Hour was released in 1994. After 10 years, he never confessed. He died in 2012 without the true author ever being discovered. The letters stopped. There were no more threats. The case grew cold, but the suspicion remained. Circleville was never the same again. For those who live there, the question is still unbearable. Did the author of the letters live among them? Was it a neighbor, a friend, a relative? There is no conclusive evidence. Only the letters, hundreds of them archived in boxes, all with the same handwriting, all written by someone who watched and knew too much. The Loveland Frog, the creature by the riverbank. Police officers were patrolling the banks of the Little Miami River around 10 o'clock at night when one of them noticed something strange. He approached. It was a short figure a little over 3 feet tall with wrinkled skin, short limbs, and a face resembling a frog. The creature stood still, one hand resting on what appeared to be a glowing egg. The officers filmed a portion using Super 8. The footage was handed over to the local department. In the spring of 1972, another sighting occurred. An officer driving along a road by the riverbank saw something quickly cross the path. He stopped the patrol car, got out, and found tracks on the ground. 5-toed footprints with cuts along the edges traced by a wet raincoat. He described a figure running away, hunched over, with an elongated face, large dark eyes. The skin, according to him, looked muddy. These reports came from police officers, qualified witnesses. Unlike stories lacking support, this one had formal documentation. The Loveland Police Department archive confirms the original 1955 documents, including the written statement and the footage. The case resurfaced in the early 2000s when the video was analyzed by experts in zoology and visual effects. They all said the quality is too poor to prove it's a trick, and the footprints do not match any known amphibian in Ohio. In the years that followed, residents began reporting similar sightings, always at night, always near the riverbank or within dense woods. Consistent reports describe a discreet figure with no attacks, no aggressive approach. In 2016, a hunter found footprints in the mud, 5 space toes, and 3 days later, hundreds of photos appeared on a local forum. The figure, although small, raised alarm. The reports always follow a pattern. The creature watches, then leaves. No loud noises, no violence, only an unsettling presence. The described conditions are simple. Proximity to water, nighttime hours, the feeling of being watched, unusual footprints, and a faint smell of algae or damp earth. Amateur investigations multiplied. Photos, videos, documents were sent to local media. They all say the same thing. There is no definitive proof, but the repetition of the phenomenon from diverse sources, including police officers, makes the report too credible to ignore. This is not folklore. There are no costumes. There are no children involved. There is no mystical fog. There are witnesses with records. There is physical evidence, footprints, film footage, and authorities who do not rule out the possibility of some form of unidentified animal. Psychologists consulted remark. The persistence of the case repeated over decades makes it more than coincidence or hysteria. What makes the Loveland Frog truly disturbing is its apparent normality. The creature has no powers, does not appear hostile, but its existence threatens the perception that we know the environment around us. A bizarre figure on an ordinary night, waiting on the other side of the road, motionless and disappearing in silence. Today, the riverbank is avoided by some officers on duty. Those who pass by at night feel the weight of the reports. Some say they hear a low sound like hissing when the waters rise. Nothing conclusive, but enough to keep the warning alive. If the Loveland Frog exists or existed, it escaped all logical explanation. What remains is the shaky photograph, the intermediate film, a creature that did not attack but left behind fear. A very real mystery. Franklin Castle, the weight of the past in Cleveland. Franklin Boulevard, 4308. A Victorian stone castle built between 1881 and 1883 by Hannes Tedman, a wealthy banker. Soon after its completion, something began to unravel within the elegant walls. The Tedman family seemed blessed until between 1891 and 1895, 5 loved ones died there. 15-year-old daughter Emma, mother-in-law of Becca, 2 other children, and finally Hannes's wife Louise. The official causes were natural diabetes, illness, but the sequence raised suspicions. The official silence only fueled rumors. Tedman added towers, secret passages, and a ballroom at the top. Locals say these spaces were never meant for display, but to hide secrets. A grand mansion surrounded by unexplained deaths and labyrinthine architecture. Decades later, the castle changed hands. Families reported voices, footsteps in the hallway, lights turning on and off by themselves. The Romano's owners in the 1960s heard a child crying on an isolated floor. Children in the family claimed to see a weeping girl. When the parents went upstairs, there was no one there. In 1975, a new owner claimed to have found human bones in a closet. He alleged they belonged to former residents. No official confirmation followed. The report was recorded, never denied. In the following years, workers reported missing tools, drills turning off by themselves, voices in empty rooms. A priest was called to bless the site. The recommendation was simple: leave. And they did. Even afterward, visitors reported phenomena. Muffled screams, objects changing places, figures seen from the street through the windows. Investigation teams brought equipment, captured noises, thermal anomalies, unexplained audio failures. There were no mutilations, no visible presences, only disruptions in the daily routine, temperatures that shifted suddenly, doors that opened without cause, whispers that came from nowhere, a heavy and unstable atmosphere. Hannes Tedman died of a stroke in 1908. Since then, the castle has undergone renovations, fires, abandonment. In 1999, one of the largest fires struck part of the structure. It was partially restored, but at night it remains empty. Some guided tours include the site. People claim to see a woman in black watching from the tower. What makes Franklin Castle disturbing is not loud apparitions. It is the accumulation, the pattern, deaths in sequence, unexplained changes, silences filled with sounds that no one can justify, passages that lead to nowhere, and rooms where no one wants to stay for long. The real horror lies in the interrupted normality, in living in a place beautiful on the outside, and slowly feeling that something is wrong, something that does not show itself, but watches, waits, remains. And what if the castle is not simply empty? What if someone or something never left? The ghost town of Moonville, spirits of the forgotten tunnel. Decades ago, it thrived as a mining village. Today, only ruins and silence remain. At the center of this empty setting, there is something that never left. The railway tunnel built in 1850. Hundreds of workers passed through there. Many never returned. Records from the Ohio Central Railroad indicate at least 8 deaths by collision or track failure inside the tunnel between 1860 and 1905. Accidents were frequent. Trains arrived too quickly. The rails screeched in unison, and the darkness concealed any warning signs. Since the 1950s, hundreds of residents or visitors have reported hearing sounds in the tunnel, footsteps, the clanging of chains, muffled voices. One such report in 1969 came from a group of young people exploring the area. They entered in the late afternoon and returned pale, saying they heard someone calling out Sam repeatedly with a cavernous voice inside the tunnel. No train was scheduled, and there were no echoes from any nearby town. In 1973, a maintenance worker heard a male voice singing a railroad works song inside the tunnel. He said it sounded distant, as if transmitted through an old radio. On site, Equipment was functioning correctly with no electrical failure. In the 1990s, amateur teams recorded EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, by leaving recorders inside the tunnel. In filtered recordings, one can hear turn back or a low, unintelligible moan, but present. The audio was sent to local universities, which confirmed it was captured sound with no apparent tampering. Several ghost hunters reported seeing strange lights. They would appear at the tunnel's entrance at night, moving from side to side, sometimes vanishing suddenly. Some witnesses said they resembled swinging lanterns, but with no human source nearby. In 2001, a local documentarian entered alone in the late afternoon and recorded tremors on the ground. He described the sensation of the tracks vibrating even though no train was near. He turned back and left without looking behind. The land surrounding the tunnel has been abandoned since the 1920s. Nothing was rebuilt. The forest took over. Rails rusted. The engine house collapsed into rubble. But the tunnel remains intact, and the voices continue. Many who passed through say they felt they were not alone, and they report fear, even in daylight. In 2010, local archaeologists began a study at the site. They found traces of old tools, minor hats buried near the tracks, and fragments of chains. Railroad documents state that many paths were never cleared, bodies were removed, but equipment and tools were left behind. These discoveries support the idea that some workers were struck while retrieving or leaving their tools and never made it out of the tunnel. The Moonville Tunnel does not appear on official maps. It stands there dark, long, and unlit. Some people avoid passing through after sunset. Others say the fear grows even under the high sun. Sounds emerge from within the darkness, and the atmosphere becomes heavy. There are no horns wailing, no terrifying apparitions. There are clear footsteps, human voices, lights that appear without explanation. There are consistent reports. There are official records. There are intact structures from a real history. The horror of Moonville is simple. It came from concrete and iron, from the weight of death there daily, and from a tunnel that, despite being closed, was never empty. And what if someone still lived within it all, hidden in the dark, walking between the tracks, watching those who pass? The Crosswick Monster, the beast that violated the herd. The year was 1882. A rural settlement, few homes, open pastures. Cattle were the main source of livelihood. A clear pattern was interrupted by something unusual. The first incident was reported in local newspapers. A cow found dead in the pasture, bearing unusual marks, subtle mutilations, clean cuts with no signs of struggle, no blood scattered. The body seemed to have been placed there, frightening, but still just an animal. The second case came within days. Another cow disappeared, its body found, and large footprints resembling a human hand marked the damp soil. It didn't take long before reports reached the Warren County Sheriff's Department. Journalists began covering the case. The population started to speculate. It wasn't a wolf or a bear. It didn't fit the description of common animals in the region. It was large, bipedal, hairy, with eyes that, according to locals, glowed in the dark. The witnesses, John Miller, a farmer, said he saw the creature at dawn. It was near the fence on his property, about 6.5 feet tall, dark, dense fur, unblinking eyes fixed straight ahead. Sarah Thompson, who lived on a nearby farm, said she heard deep grunts during the night, followed by crashes in the barnyard. Another witness, Amos Curry, claimed to have seen something knock over an empty wagon. It pushed the cart down the dirt road before sunrise. Newspapers of the time reproduced the accounts. Reports depicted a town in panic. Thousands of enormous footprints were found in pastures and along the roadsides. Impressive prints with clearly defined digits and spacing wider than any adult human foot. The behavior was not subtle. The creature attacked cattle, destroyed fences, tore down gates, but it never harmed a human. People said the creature backed away if confronted. It did not run fast. It simply disappeared into the trees. This reinforced rumors of intelligence, not just a wild animal. Authorities brought in bear hunters without success. The tracks persisted. Some believed the creature lived in nearby burrows or caves. The presence was real. The damage was real. It's all in official documents from the 1880s. The case drew the eyes of the curious. Visitors crowded the village roads at dawn, searching for clues. Iron bars were installed on house windows. Farmers took shifts watching over their herds, armed with hunting rifles and lanterns, but nothing was seen at night. After weeks of reports and rising fear, the panic subsided. Public reports stated that the monster had not been seen again. What made it stop? No one knows. But the herds returned to normal. The footprints ceased. The panic ended. Today, Crosswick is part of rural Ohio, with few people remembering these stories. But some local historians keep clippings from the time. Old families still share the tales at Sunday lunch. There are records from the 1882 Farmers Association meetings calling for action against the mysterious monster. There was no one to accuse, no body, no trace, only the awareness that something large, strong, and unexplainable acted under the cover of darkness. The Crosswick monster did not confuse fear with violence. It targeted the herd. The silent cry of the cattle was the only warning, the only trace, and it was recorded in history as a mystery of a creature that defied any zoological explanation of the era. When something unidentified appears, the shock does not come from violence, but from intrusion. Something out of place that reminds us not all dangers are hidden in the dark. Some are among us, unnoticed. Not all stories end with answers. Some leave only silence. Fear and questions no one silence. From Ohio's forgotten archives emerge creatures never captured, letters that never stopped, voices that still echo in abandoned tunnels and houses that were never truly empty. Time passes, but these mysteries remain like poorly healed scars on the map of the United States. The question is not what happened, it is when will it happen again. If these stories made you look over your shoulder or think twice before turning off the light, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications here. Every new episode is a new descent into the unknown. Which of these mysteries do you think might have been real? And which one made you most uncomfortable?